Hello VC, Plastic Eric here, Plastic Soundwave Cult, here for another edition of... I'm getting a little bubble. Hey, and welcome to a Thursday Collection Connection, the game that's just an excuse to talk about records. In Eric's last video, he gave me the Easy Rider original soundtrack. I queued it up on Apple Music, and only 4 of the 10 songs were available. I think the others are probably available on the original albums. That's one of the things you come across, I guess, in a licensing situation. And I queued up a couple other of the songs. The Holy Modal Rounders one was interesting. And the Kyrie take. But familiar with most of the songs anyway. Jimi Hendrix and Steppenwolf, and at least the original version of The Weight, the band's version of The Weight. I am banging this out pretty quick here because I've left it till video day to tape. So I'm going to cut to the quick and say that the thing that struck me was that the version that Eric has of the Easy Rider soundtrack has a cover that I am completely unfamiliar with. The image that was shared from kind of the movie poster was iconic. The yellow and kind of cross-hatched art style of Peter Fonda there on the cover is what I associate with Easy Rider. But as I was looking into it, it seems that most countries had the cover that Eric showed. There were a couple of exceptions. I think there were some Scandinavian pressings that had the same cover as the US. But for the most part, in Germany, Japan, all over the place, they had the cover that he showed. And I thought of another album that the US cover is completely different than most of the rest of the world. And that album is 2001's The Strokes' Is This It? It's the only Strokes album that I have, and focusing on it today, or in the last couple of days, has brought around the realization that it's 20 years old now. So even the music that I think of as new music is still decades old at this point. Kind of depressing. But the album was one that I got, I think, kind of because of all the hype. And I hadn't fully bought into the hype. I guess I bought in enough that I bought the record, but it wasn't one that played a whole lot. I picked a couple songs, which were Last Night and The Modern Age. They made it onto some of the mixes and stuff, playlists that I would make for myself, but the rest of the album was mostly ignored. Much of it had not been played since actually about 10 years ago, 2011. So listening to it, I don't know what my problem was necessarily. It was very enjoyable. I enjoyed it. You can see, you read about them, I guess, and they talk a lot about the Velvet Underground and maybe television, which I see a little more, but I find there's a lot in common there with the Ramones. Even though a little bit of the sonic, just the actual noise that they make, the sound that they make, the sort of disaffected cool, is very New York, and that sort of rings of the Velvet Underground, and the guitariness of television. And maybe it was completely out of fashion in 2001 to have that sound, but to kind of pull away from the grunge. It's Ramones-like in that they're very short. There's not a lot of chops. There's not a lot of soloing, if any. There might be a couple of solos, but it's hard to focus on an album for an album length and pick up on whether there's solos. You just kind of listen to the music, playing it, and not thinking, is there a solo going on? But it's just very kind of repetitive, and the songs are short, like the Ramones. They just kind of get to the point, they do it, they get it done, and then they move on to the next song. So there's not a lot of the kind of the languid, stretched out Television and Velvet Underground type songs. And if you're going to compare it to the Velvet Underground, it seems like maybe their whole, the whole Strokes aesthetic was like Waiting for My Man, or Waiting for the Man, Waiting for the Man. Kind of all based on that particular song's sound. Kind of a rambling, shambling, but still fairly simple put up. But it's very hooky, like Ramones songs. And yeah, I think it was good. One thing I did not realize about the album is that because it came out in 2001 and it kind of had a staggered release where they were sort of releasing it as they were touring in different places. And so it was already released in places like Japan and England, where it did very, very well. They didn't come back around to the States until around September. And there was a song called New York City Cops. In the light of 9/11, they decided it was maybe in poor taste to include. And so it was dropped. So in addition to having a different cover, it had a slightly different track list because they slotted in an intended B-side in place of that one New York City Cops song. That I think the song that they put in was called When It Started. That was not on other versions, but it is on the US version. So I thought that was interesting. I'm going to go ahead and show the US version, A, because that's what I have, and 2, because in my last video, the thumbnail got taken down by YouTube for violating their standards of decency. So yeah, I'm just hammering this out real quick. That's got to be at least 5 minutes. So I will throw the Strokes 2001 debut over to Eric. The only other Strokes material I have is Julian Casablancas' first solo album, Phrases for the Young. And I listened to that one actually quite a bit more than I ever listened to this one as an album. But that made me think that I also could connect to my last choice. There's a singer named Julian, from Julian Cope to Julian Casablancas. But from Easy Rider to Is This It, we have a US album cover that differs from what most of the rest of the world got. So yeah, look for Eric's response. Brother Eric, Plastic Eric, not Brother Eric, Plastic Eric, of the Plastic Soundwave Cult channel on Monday. And tune into both, subscribe to both to play along, and be ready for some changes soon on my part. And that's all I got. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.